sudden you caught feelings?
Not pretending.
MAGA, do better than that. You're being ridiculous and you know it. Now you're snowflakes. Now you're snowflakes. After all
right, let me
these
bring, okay. Hang on. Don't all shout.
Hold on,
let me bring in Emily.
Clear. The Republicans are not snowflakes, and since Biden called the Americans who support Trump garbage, all I've seen on X are memes of people going to vote now in garbage bags, memes of people putting trash cans on the street and saying it's a family portrait. Republicans are not snowflakes, and truth be told, I don't think anyone's offended because, yes, our sitting president, who has nuclear codes, is a senile old man.
Donald Trump said Democrats, where the majority are sick and evil people. Yesterday, folks, Donald Trump, when confronted
calling people
with these
Hitler,
offensive comments,
context. If you talk about context,
let me finish,
context.
Ben, don't gish gallop. Ben, I'm about to kick your ass. Don't gish gallop. Just listen to me. I listen to you.
Dude, you're like a buck 20, and this is what liberals do, okay? I laugh this.
Just let me listen. I'm going to do it with a smile on my face.
Hang on. Calm down.
I'm going to beat you up.
Don't talk over each other because people can't hear. But I do really. Hang on. I do want to see. Hang on.
I'm cringing
hang on,
right now,
Ben.
Piers. I'm afraid I'm going to get beat up here.
Hang on. I do want to see Wajahat try and kick Ben Ferguson's ass. So off you go, Wajahat.
Not going to happen.
Ben Ferguson and influencer Emily Austin joined Piers Morgan Uncensored for a heated debate with a Democratic panel featuring Cenk Uygur, co-host of The Young Turks, and Wajahat Ali from the Democracy-ish podcast. In this segment, Cenk and Wajahat try to defend Biden and downplay the issue of left-wing hate and extreme rhetoric. What makes this video so interesting is how Cenk, who has a history of getting worked up in these discussions, loses his cool once again, becoming visibly frustrated and launching into a rant. Let's dive into this clip from Piers Morgan Uncensored, where Ben Ferguson and Emily Austin take on some intense left-wing talking points. This is definitely a debate worth watching. It's both insightful and crucial for understanding where everyone stands on these topics. Here it is.
Let me start with you, Ben Ferguson. It's been a tough couple of days for Donald Trump ever since the rally, which I was at Madison Square Garden, where they're on the back foot trying to defend what this comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, has said about Puerto Rico being an island of garbage. And it must have felt like literal manna from heaven last night when Joe Biden suddenly appeared out of nowhere in his bunker on a Skype call, of all things, right as Kamala Harris was presenting her final plea to the nation. And he calls basically every Trump voter in America, so 80 million plus people, garbage. Your thoughts?
Look, in politics, the last week of a campaign, your surrogate's job is to do no harm. And Joe Biden went out there and said something that was just unconscionable. And if you're going to say you're outraged by a comedian, and I didn't like what he said either. I think most people were pretty, bang on with what you and I saw. Like, come on, like, don't say that. I disagree with it. And it was a bad moment for the campaign because now you're not talking about the issues in that moment. But when he walks out there and he says that Americans are, as he describes it, floating garbage, that's the gift that just keeps on giving. But when you connect the dots, like as much as people say that he's senile and obviously had to drop out of this race, look at what the Democratic Party has said, that, conservatives cling to God and they mock God and guns. You have, Kamala the other day saying you're at the wrong rally when someone says something about believing in Jesus Christ. And then you've got the basket of deplorables by the way, Donald Trump's Hitler in the last week and that he's a fascist and that Kamala Harris believes a fascist. If this is your closing argument to the American people that we truly hate half of this country and we think that you are deplorables, that you are garbage, that you are fascist, that you are Nazis, that you are Hitler, I don't think that's the closing argument that the Democratic Party or any strategist would say, yes, this is what you should be saying in the last days. And I think this could literally cost them not just the presidential. I think this could cost them the Senate, and I think it could cost them some House seats as well, because it is the worst things you could say about half the country going into the final days. You're supposed to have some hope. I mean, Barack Obama, remember, why did he win? He won because he ran off of hope and change. There was some unity in his message. It was hard to land punches against him when he was running against McCain. And people felt like he was going to bring the country together. Kamala Harris is doing the complete opposite of that. I don't understand it. It's inexplicable to me that this is their campaign strategy.
Let me acknowledge things that are true. So, number one, Biden shouldn't have said it. look, my co-host on the Young Turks, Anna Kasparian, has been trying to get everybody to stop attacking the voters themselves. I think she's absolutely right about that. I've been guilty of that in the past, and we're trying to get past this. So Biden shouldn't have said that. On the other hand, you know Biden's senile. I mean, look at that clip that you played, stuttering up Puerto Rico, Delaware, I don't know, and we're still. You guys said he was senile and should get out of the race. Now you're like, oh, no, he means it. He's perfectly cogent. He represents all Democrats. So
well, hang on.
By the way, don't say things like,
hang on.
Okay, here we go. Of course.
Just to be clear.
Ben speaks for 2 minutes, and I always get interrupted.
No, you'll have plenty of time. But just to be clear, he remains the president of the United States. Joe Biden hasn't quit. He remains in the Oval Office running your country. So I'm sorry to jump in
Piers,
and point out that we may think he's senile, which I do, but he's still running your country.
Okay, Piers, you know my position on Biden. I ran against him because I thought he was senile, and I thought it was ridiculous. But now all of a sudden you're pretending he's not senile. He is senile. It's like getting mad at somebody with Alzheimer's. What are you getting mad at him for? Well, that's ridiculous. But that's not the point, guys. Look, I'm granting you that he definitely shouldn't have said that, and Debbie Dingell definitely shouldn't have said internment camps because Trump never said that. Now, having said that, guys, are you really pretending to be offended after you've supported Donald Trump, who has said everything in the world about left-wing voters, radical left lunatics? Hey, here we go again. No interruptions. He's called them radical left lunatics, Marxist, communist, fascist. He said that we should use the military to attack the enemy from within. And then you're pretending that all of a sudden you caught feelings? MAGA, do better than that. You're being ridiculous and you know it. Now you're snowflakes. Now you're snowflakes. After all
let me bring, hang on.
Let's take a moment to point out the obvious. Cenk Uygur calling someone else a snowflake is like a pyromaniac lecturing others on fire safety. It's beyond ironic. Just from his appearances on Piers Morgan Uncensored, Cenk's emotional outbursts could be a textbook example of what it means to be a snowflake. A true snowflake is someone who gets easily triggered, is overly sensitive to opposing ideas, and struggles to handle a civil conversation without becoming emotional. And Cenk checks every box here.
Let me bring in Emily. Emily, apparently we're snowflakes if we're offended by Joe Biden calling 80 million Americans garbage. I don't think that's snowflakery. I mean, I do remember for the last 3 days, all I've heard is Democrats screaming.
You're all ignoring all the things Trump has said. You guys are so nuts.
Cenk, if I just say, I'll come back to you,
Trump is the most vicious politician of our lifetime.
The way Democrats,
he's like pure as the driven snow.
The way Democrats have pivoted. Hang on, the way Democrats have pivoted in the last 3 days from garbage is the worst slur imaginable to just because Joe Biden calls 80 million Americans garbage, suddenly, why are you getting so offended? Is laughable. Emily, to you.
Okay, let me make something clear. The Republicans are not snowflakes, and since Biden called the Americans who support Trump garbage, all I've seen on X are memes of people going to vote now in garbage bags, memes of people putting trash cans on the street and saying it's a family portrait. Republicans are not snowflakes, and truth be told, I don't think anyone's offended because yes, our sitting president, who has nuclear codes, is a senile old man that, let me remind everyone, Kamala literally 2.5 months ago was endorsing him and reminding everyone that he is sharp as a tack. But here's the issue. It doesn't speak to the Republicans. It's showing the American people, despite Harris Walz claiming they're the party of unity and they're for everyone, and yes, Harris is a continuation of Biden, who's failed as a president, they claim to try to unite everyone. But then the sitting president goes out and says, oh, you all are garbage. We don't care what he says. He's delusional. But it speaks to their character, it speaks to their party, and it speaks to their values. And that is a problem, that they're showing the American people their true colors. Republicans don't care. Call us garbage.
How about
call us
your values?
Deplorables. We just want our president in office.
Okay,
Vajah,
I mean, look,
how about your values?
Whatever, hang on,
Trump
Cenk,
does is attack us 8,000 times, and you totally ignore that.
We don't call you Hitler. We don't say you should go to camps for re-education.
He's called us every name in the book.
Hang on, we're coming to Hitler.
He's called us Marxist.
We're coming to Hitler, which is now only the second most offensive thing of the.
It's clear from Joe Biden's recent comments that there's a persistent pattern of disdain toward MAGA supporters. Whether he meant specific individuals or the entire group, the sentiment seems to align with the ongoing rhetoric we've seen from other prominent figures on the left. Remember Hillary Clinton's infamous basket of deplorables remark? She categorized Trump supporters as racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. That mindset doesn't appear to have faded. Instead, it's amplified. The establishment often portrays MAGA supporters and middle Americans as backward, unsophisticated, and an obstacle to their vision of a progressive, multicultural society. Their disdain isn't just verbal. It's reflected in policies that seem to neglect the interests of blue-collar workers and middle-class families. From outsourcing jobs to big corporations and prioritizing billions for illegal immigrants and foreign wars, their actions suggest a deep disconnect from the people they're supposed to serve. The rhetoric used to describe MAGA supporters as a dark energy or a carnival of grievances only fuels division. It's hard to miss the contempt directed at Christian values, blue-collar workers, and the heart of middle America. These are the same communities that bore the brunt of outsourcing and economic decline, yet they're often vilified rather than supported. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Do you think this rhetoric reflects how the liberal establishment genuinely feels about everyday Americans? Or is it just political posturing?
Wajahat, from a political point of view, the stupidity of what Biden did can't be overstated, really, because Kamala Harris, I watched it last night. Look, I think she talks a lot of word salad nonsense. Honestly, I do. She wouldn't inspire me to open a crisp packet, let alone vote for her. However, she's the Democrat nominee. The polls are absolutely neck and neck, particularly in the swing states. The very last thing she would have wanted when she's presented her final argument to the nation is for Joe Biden, the guy she's replaced, who's still her president, to pop up on a Skype call of all things and say this kind of thing, which, whether it's been misinterpreted or not, and I don't think it has been, it's just such a gift to Republicans, isn't it?
This is me playing the world's smallest violin for all the fake outrage of MAGA and Trump supporters, who I believe are the most fickle, brittle, weak people on earth, who can dispense cruelty and demand civility, who hate safe spaces for everyone, want safe spaces for themselves, and who, by the way, with this hypocritical fake outrage, the reason why I don't think most people will care is because people know what Trump is for the past 9 years. And just yesterday, Donald Trump, who is running for president, Joe Biden is not, and Joe Biden, he's 81 years old, he has a stutter, and by the way, I appreciate the context that he gave. I don't think he needed to, but he did. Donald Trump yesterday, final pitch of the country. You know what he called America? A garbage can. Donald Trump said all of us, 340 million Americans, live in a garbage can. Yes, he did. Yesterday in his speech, he said America is a garbage can. Yesterday, Donald Trump said Democrats, who are the majority, are sick and evil people. Yesterday, folks, Donald Trump, when confronted with these offensive comments,
if you talk about context,
let me finish, Ben, don't gish gallop. Ben, I'm about to kick your ass. Don't gish gallop. Just listen to me. I listen to you.
Dude, you're like a buck 20, and this is what liberals do, okay? I laugh this.
Just let me listen. I'm going to do it with a smile on my face.
Hang on. Calm down.
I'm going to beat you up.
Don't talk over each other because people can't hear. But I do really. Hang on. I do want to see. Hang on.
I'm cringing right now, Piers. I'm afraid I'm going to get beat up here.
Hang on. I do want to see Wajahat try and kick Ben Ferguson's ass. So off you go, Wajahat.
Not going to happen.
I'm going to do it with a smile on my face. I'm going to do it relaxed. Yesterday, when Donald Trump was confronted with, I'm glad you and Ben and Piers agree that it was horrific, disgusting comments against Puerto Rico, black people, against Jews, against Palestinians, against women, which, by the way, have rallied Puerto Ricans all across America. You know what Donald Trump said? No big deal. Yesterday, this past week, J.D. Vance said, get over it. J.D. Vance, his vice president, is the one who called him Hitler. By the way, guess who said that Donald Trump praises Hitler? 4-star General John Kelly, just in the past 2 weeks. In the final 2 weeks of his campaign to unify America, you know what Donald Trump said? That the people who are against him are enemy of the people, another Hitler line, and he said he would unleash the military and the National Guard against U.S. citizens, against immigrants and migrants. He said he will invoke the Alien Sedition Act that in turn Japanese Americans. This is the same man who ran against the same man who promoted a neo-Nazi conspiracy about Haitian immigrants eating pets, even after he was told it was a lie. The Wall Street Journal, funded by Murdoch, not a left-wing rag, a right-wing outlet, reported that him and Vance were told it was a lie. He still said it which has caused stochastic terrorism in Springfield, Ohio. So this is Donald Trump. The majority of people don't care. The majority of people know Biden apologized. He stuttered. And the majority of people saw Kamala Harris at the ellipse. 75,000 people came. You saw the last point. Last point I'll make. Last point I'll make. 75,000 people came out to see Kamala Harris at the ellipse. I'm so glad she was at the ellipse because you know why? It's a contrast. Kamala Harris was there for the Constitution, for the United States of America, for the rule of law. Donald Trump incited a violent insurrection. And just 2 weeks ago at Univision, when the 56-year-old Latino construction worker asked him to apologize for it, he didn't. And you saw that view of those Latino women. He is going to lose. I'm here for the MAGA tears. They're sugar for my chai.
Okay. He's here for the MAGA tears, Ben. Are you prepared to start crying?
I go back to, and this is why I feel like it's going to be a very strong election night. There's nothing that was just talked about that matters to the people that are hurting and suffering in this country right now. Nothing that was just said there was unifying. Nothing that was just said there was about the concerns of people that are struggling in this country with inflation, with illegal immigration, with convicted terrorists coming across the border, with those that are convicted of murder and rape that are coming across the border. There is zero concern for the American people in your closing argument. And this is the reason why Donald Trump will win on election night.
Ben, do you agree?
Your only thing you can do and come out and say is, if I disagree with you, I'm going to kick your ass, which, by the way, goes back to what you guys do. We don't like you, we lock you up. We imprison you. We put you in prison.
Ben, do you agree with Donald Trump?
And then you're like, I don't like, I'm going to kick your ass. Like, this is your closing argument. You guys need to, like, get out of junior high.
I wasn't the one. I didn't participate in a violent insurrection, Ben. I didn't participate in a violent insurrection.
I denounced it when it happened. So guess what? We're not all, see, this is the difference.
Okay, wait.
You guys hate half of America. And you don't understand that your hatred is said everyone is bad when one person or two people do something.
Donald Trump hates all of America.
Gentlemen, let's let the lady speak. Emily?
Please. Boys. The problem is that I think the Democratic Party, they're way too emotional about this election. And it's funny that Wajahat's calling the MAGA people the sensitive ones. When you cry over misgendering someone, when a dude looks like a dude and identifies as a woman and is called she, you start crying. So don't talk to me about oversensitivity. That's a definition of the Democratic Party.
Yes, homophobia and yes, go after the transgenders.
You guys have TDS syndrome. You don't understand that this is not about emotions. Ben just said it perfectly. Every single argument that the left uses against the right are not real factors that impact the American people. They're not factors that keep America safe. It's nothing that helps the economy. You focus solely on how does Trump make me feel when I go to sleep at night. He doesn't like women. He made a joke about a black person and a Jew and a Muslim and a Christian. Listen to me, that comedian, you guys are pretending suddenly everyone cares about Puerto Rico, but when they were after hurricane, no one gave a damn about them. But let's just forget that for a moment. This comedian makes fun of everyone. So talk about selective outrage. That joke caused selective outrage because he literally rips every demographic of people. And let me tell you the difference. This comedian is not our sitting president. When the sitting president calls half of America garbage, that's a bigger problem than a comedian who rips every group of people speaking at a rally. Do me a favor, selective outrage. You guys can't stop crying nonstop about your TDS.
Wow, talk about theatrics. Wajahat's attempt at being the tough guy while closing his statements with MAGA tears are sugar for my chai is both hilarious and ironic. Imagine claiming you're going to kick some ass only to get completely owned. Not once, but twice. And one of those times by a girl. The irony is off the charts. Speaking of humor, the Tony Hinchcliffe situation is a perfect example of how far we've strayed from embracing comedy. Tony is a roast comedian. His job is to push boundaries and make edgy jokes. That's what roast comedy is all about. Whether he's performing live on Kill Tony or at high-profile roasts, his jokes often walk the line, and that's the point. Sure, not every performance hits a home run, but the backlash against his jokes highlights the absurd level of sensitivity we're seeing today. It's like people have forgotten that comedians are supposed to make offensive jokes. The outrage from the left is a prime example of what I'd call snowflakery, the inability to handle humor or differing perspectives without spiraling into outrage. This hypersensitivity is why so many find Trump relatable. Love him or hate him, he's funny, knows how to lighten the mood, and doesn't crumble under criticism. It's refreshing compared to someone like Kamala Harris, who skipped the Alfred E. Smith dinner roast altogether, probably to avoid having to laugh at herself or face any critique. We've reached a point where having a sense of humor is almost revolutionary. The left's over-the-top reactions to everything, from comedy to politics, show just how humorless and out of touch they've become. What happened to being able to laugh at ourselves and embrace a little satire?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the point about Tony Hinchcliffe is, hang on. The point about Tony Hinchcliffe, if you watch the Netflix Tom Brady roast special, he is the star of that roast. He said stuff that makes what he said at the Madison Square Garden seem like a tea party. I mean, he is an offensive roaster of absolutely everyone and everything. And nobody seemed to mind when he was doing it in a Netflix special, which is still available.
They loved
Tom Brady's roasting. Everyone found him hilarious. And my point to you, Cenk,
did it fit
would
any
be that
political
Jon Stewart, of all people, came forward and said, I'm sorry, I find this guy funny. And I wonder how many of the people screaming about Tony Hinchcliffe's jokes quietly found him quite funny. I didn't particularly, but a lot of people would have found his humor funny if they know he's a roaster. But I'm feigning outrage. And then the moment Biden, who is the president of the United States, uses exactly the same word to slur 80 million Americans, suddenly we should all stop being offended. We can't have it both ways.
Yeah, so first of all, I respect Jon Stewart. So when he said he likes him as a comic, fine. But you're wrong about one thing. He slurred all of those minorities. You're right. But there's one group he didn't touch at all: white people, and men, and MAGA. Huh? What a funny coincidence from a brave roaster. So you're in front of MAGA, you don't roast them at all. All you do is roast people you don't like. Interesting. Okay, so now, but guys, this whole getting offended shtick that both sides are doing is maddening. There's a slight agreement there with Ben on, that I have on that. So after Trump does every insult in the world, you guys now are pretending that, oh my God, I caught the vapors. He called us garbage. After Trump, you loved when Trump said all these terrible things. So look at what actually is going on. Why is Kamala Harris pointing out at the end that Donald Trump is a unique danger? Because if you're being honest, he is a unique danger. You don't have to go to internment camps. You don't have to go to Hitler analogies, etc. But when the guy says that the left is the enemy from within and he might use the military on them, and there are his own advisors who said, yes, we had conversations in the White House where Trump asked us if we could use the military to shoot protesters in the leg, which, by the way, shooting protesters, it doesn't get any more cancel culture than that. And he said after he lost that we should terminate the Constitution. If that's not a unique danger to the Constitution and the democracy, what is? And if you say we shouldn't point that out, we shouldn't point out that a guy wanted to terminate the Constitution and shoot the protesters with the U.S. military, and you don't get why that sounds like, and fill in the blank, fascist, dictator, wannabe, whatever word you want, but that sounds super dangerous.
This is the problem. This was not corroborated by people in a large group. The majority of people around Trump said that what you just described, including the comments from last week, never, ever happened. And the people that say it are people that hate Donald Trump. So that's number one. Number two, I look at what he did in office.
There's own staffers.
He didn't start wars.
It's his
he didn't start wars. Let me finish. He didn't start wars. He ended wars. He had the lowest unemployment for Hispanic Americans and African Americans in history. He had interest rates down in 2+% on a 30-year mortgage. He had inflation down. People could afford to live. And I go back to the closing argument theme here. Piers, if this is what Democrats want to talk about till Election Day, 6 days from now, then knock yourself out, because you're going to lose, because none of this is about the suffering of Americans in this country right now. None of it's about safety. None of it's about ending wars. None of it is about the people that are hurting, living paycheck to paycheck right now. And that is what Donald Trump is talking about here. And the Democrats are saying we hate half of America. You're garbage. The president of the United States of America is saying it. The vice president is saying he's a fascist and Hitler. If that is your closing argument, you are going to lose. And I go back to Barack Obama. Barack Obama understood retail politics. You have to give something that makes people think about a future that's better than it is right now. When he went on Hope and Change, yes, it was rhetoric, but it worked because it gave people hope for the future. And this party right now is filled with hate. The Democratic Party is filled with hate. Harris and her team are filled with hate for half of America. That's how you don't win an election.
Okay, let
you
me
can laugh, but you're gonna lose.
Ben Ferguson hit the nail on the head in this debate, completely dismantling Wajahat Ali's weak arguments. Meanwhile, Cenk Uygur's constant head shaking is classic, denying facts that were clearly stated and rooted in Biden's own words. It's typical left-wing behavior from people like Cenk and Wajahat, creating an alternate reality to pacify Kamala Harris supporters who refuse to acknowledge the truth. This was another win for MAGA and the conservative movement, a big W as always. The closer we get to the election, the more desperate and unhinged the Democrats become. Their strategy of labeling Republicans and MAGA supporters as Nazis is not just ineffective, it's backfiring spectacularly. Everyone can see through the lies and fear-mongering, and it's only making them look worse. It's always entertaining to watch debates like these. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this showdown. How did Ben Ferguson and Emily Austin hold up against Cenk Uygur and Wajahat Ali? Who do you think came out on top? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me bring you more content like this.